I don't know if you've thought about this before, but the homilies that I give here on Catholic TV are different than the homilies I would give in a parish or when I celebrate Mass at a university or high school. For example, one time I went to a high school for the Feast of St. Francis Xavier, and I challenged the students to keep their right hand raised the entirety of the homily as a way of calling to mind just how tired St. Francis Xavier's hand would have been after baptizing thousands upon thousands of people in a day. I don't think you all need a gimmick like that to help pay attention. But paying attention to one's audience is a really important part of rhetoric. And St. Paul was a master of rhetoric. We can see that through his writings, just how skilled he was. But also here in this account of Acts of the Apostles, chapter 13, where we see that he stands up, he motions with his hand with a flourish to get everyone's attention. But then most importantly of all, he speaks to those who are present. We hear that he's in a synagogue speaking to the fellow children of Israel and you others who are God-fearing. Now that God-fearing category, just for a little background, those are the Gentiles who are very interested in the Jewish faith and therefore are attending synagogue. Maybe they've come to belief in just one God from their Greek philosophy, but they're interested in learning more, and so they've come to know the Jewish scriptures. So very different than maybe your average Gentiles, celebrating different pagan religions. So St. Paul, he's speaking to people who know the scriptures, they know the history and theology and story of Israel. And so he speaks to them there in that situation. He tells them about Jesus Christ and how he's the fulfillment of all of salvation history, beginning with Abraham to Moses to the judges and Samuel and King David. And then he goes on to point out how Jesus fulfills the prophecies in the Psalms as well. If you continue reading Acts chapter 13, you see just exactly how St. Paul does this. But yeah, he's speaking to his people. And when St. Paul, for example, when he goes to Athens, he proclaims Jesus Christ very differently. He's speaking in Athens, he's speaking to a totally Greek audience, and so he uses Greek philosophy and culture and religion to do so. And in this way, it opens people's heart. It prepares them. He speaks to them in Jesus Christ in a way that they're ready to receive and are open to receiving. And that's very important. In Jesus in the gospel today, he says, "Whoever receives the one I send receives me. And whoever receives me receives the one who sent me." And so when we want to share our faith, it's really important for us to try to do so in a way that people will be open to receiving us, but more so than that, not only receive us, but receive Jesus Christ and receive, in turn, receive God the Father as well. I think a lot of times when we share the faith, we simply do so saying what we want to say, and we're not really compassionate and really attentive to what does this other person need to hear? How is God at work in their life? There's a great book called Forming Intentional Disciples by Sherry Waddell. And in that book, she outlines different stages one might be on in discipleship and coming to faith in God. And in that way, because somebody who might just be merely curious, we might suffocate if we overload them with tons of catechesis and all the teachings of the faith, but simply helping them to ask the important questions. So in light of all this, may we come with great zeal for sharing our faith with others who in a world that needs to hear it, but may we do so with great humility, recognizing that we don't come of ourselves, but we come in the name of the one who sends us, Jesus Christ and his Father, and also with great humility and compassion, truly listening to the hearts and the needs of those to whom we speak.